Drum beats are the name of the game in fantasy football, and as everyone gets back to the news cycle with training camp opening up, we need to know the favorite drum beats from the offseason. It's the audible Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, and I'm a little pissed, Bloom. Sorry, Joe, because every day it seems like I'm writing about Joe Mixon. Joe
Mm.
Mixon expecting a large workload. Joe Mixon going to get a large workload. Joe Mixon getting in shape for a large workload. Guess what? The one drumbeat larger than any other has been this offseason.
And see, this is one that tests, and I'm not saying we know the right answer. This is why we love fantasy football. We put down our answers on the test, and the answer key is revealed as the season goes on. And with Joe Mixon, I think the positive side of the Joe Mixon outlook is, well, number one, he's in an offense that everyone is going to be trying to stop the pass first. This was a terrible running game last year, but they're going to try to stop the pass first with the addition of Stephon Diggs, with CJ Stroud, also good offensive line to give Stroud a chance to attack downfield. The other part is that, wow, the Texans think more of Joe Mixon than any of us. They traded for him, they signed him to an extension and starter money, and they keep talking about how he's their guy. He's a workhorse. So he's going to have that opportunity. Now, the negative side of Joe Mixon is the last couple of years, he hasn't been that efficient. He hasn't looked like the running back that the Texans see. But will that matter in fantasy football? Because running back is mainly a compilation position. So if Joe Mixon just gets all the 1 yard touchdowns, if Joe Mixon gets all the second half work when the Texans are ahead, if Joe Mixon is just on the field 75% of the time in this offense and it doesn't get hurt, then he's going to be a great 5th or 6th round pick. And generally, running backs like Joe Mixon, as far as his fantasy football profile, even on the back nine of his career, go in the 3rd or 4th round. But this is also part of the trend we've seen, Cease, where the dead zone at running back has moved to the 6th, 7th, 8th round, which
Mhm.
actually becomes pretty attractive. Joe Mixon's kind of the beginning of that tier, but probably worth taking as long as the Texans keep telling us we're going to give him the ball a lot.
Yes, and the other thing on that, Bloom, is I don't think we're going to see him in the preseason. I don't think we're going to see him much. Training camp reports might be somewhat limited. So we're getting all this like before training camp starts drum beats. Joe Mixon's going to get a large workload. And then when it comes to August, he might have a veteran day off here or
Right.
there. He's probably not going to play in the preseason. This is just me guessing.
Hmm.
But like, so you could have this huge drum beat, like constant drum beats from the offseason. And then all of a sudden, fantasy GMs may not hear much of anything in August. So use that to your advantage.
Yeah, I think that's another reminder, Cease, that teams don't play the players that they expect to be the central parts of their offense.
Mhm.
So as the signal gets weaker when we get deeper into August, that's not a negative. That's actually a positive.
Yes, it's a positive. So look out for that. It's a positive because it's all about love, Bloom, on this show. We love each other. We love fantasy football. And my God, I love Jared Wiley so much so that as I'm doing the draft coverage for Denver Sports 1043 The Fan, um, I got physically ill when Jared Wiley was taken by the Chiefs because I wanted the Broncos to get him. I loved him at the Senior Bowl. There's your bong grip. Like I love the guy. Mistook
Mhm.
him for a wide receiver multiple times during practice because of the way he moves, and it's huge. And then here we go, right on time. One of the most consistent drum beats from the off season is this Jared Wiley guy looks like a star in the making.
Yeah, especially with Patrick Mahomes. And I think what we really need to update here is more of a long view where
Yes, yes.
Noah Gray has worked out as a pick, a 3rd day pick. And so much so that, see, what's Noah Gray going to get per year in free agency next year? 5 million, 6 million, 7 million. He'll get at least like what Colby Parkinson got, right? He's shown
Hmm.
as much as Colby Parkinson did for Seattle. So now, where we saw Noah Gray as maybe the heir to Travis Kelsey, I think we need to update that. I think we need to erase Noah Gray's name and we need to write Jared Wiley's name in there. Now, is Jared Wiley as dynamic as Travis Kelsey or even Noah Gray athletically? Maybe not, but he's an outstanding two-way tight end. He led all football bowl subdivision tight ends in touchdowns last year. We care about touchdowns in fantasy football, I think. So if he becomes that guy. And when you think of Jared Wiley's game as a receiver, you think of him as a post-up guy. I mean, he's that red zone. There are some really good fantasy tight ends right now, Cease, that aren't that guy. Like Evan Ingram's not that guy. He can catch a lot of passes, but when it comes time to make those catches in close quarters where the quarterback's trusting you, Jared Wiley's going to be that guy for Patrick Mahomes. And while the Kansas City offense has retooled with Xavier Worthy and giving them that deep threat and bringing in Marquise Brown, they still, after Travis Kelce, don't have that post up, that red zone force. You've got the speed, you've got the guys that can get you in the end zone from long range, but from short range, for the long term, it'll be Jared Wiley.
Yeah, and you bring up his quarterback, and I'll bring up his offense. Think of the pucker factor when you face the Chiefs. You're already worried enough gray hairs when you go when you're defensive coordinator against the Chiefs. And then think of like the declaration of influence. All right,
Right.
we're going to double up on Kelsey. We're going to try to bracket over the top for Hollywood. And watching those highlights, by the way, from Chiefs camps, pretty damn cool of Mahomes tossing it up there for Hollywood. But like, um, Wiley's going to be one on one against someone that can't cover him.
Right. Right.
And Pat Mahomes, who's his favorite guy? The open guy.
Right. Yeah,
So this could be even more dangerous.
and already in training camp, he's on the field in 2 tight end sets with Travis Kelce. So this is one of those situations. I'm not going to say Puka Nakua in terms of fantasy impact, but in terms of that drumbeat, where every time you hear something about Jared Wiley, out of Chiefs OTAs, out of Chiefs training camp, they're ready to put a lot on his plate, and he's ready to eat.
I think Marshawn Lloyd thought I was an arrogant prick. Sorry, Joe. I can say that, right? YouTube's like, get out of here.
Right?
Anyway, when I was at the combine and I had to ask Marshawn, who's my favorite back in this draft class, I said, Marshawn, you're my number one back in this draft class. Tell me why I'm right. Why I'm right. He
Mhm.
was like, what?
It's a question about
Anyway,
me or you.
yeah, exactly. It's always about me. The Packers pick him up. Of course, you got Josh Jacobs there. But again, if we just go what's been some of the most regular reporting from the offseason, not
Mhm.
because these last two are my favorites, but my favorite tight end and my favorite running back seem to be the ones generating a lot of buzz. And yes, Jacobs is there. So maybe there's a little bit of long view or whatever. But we're also hearing that prepare for more Marshawn Lloyd? What are some of the exact wordings from these Green Bay reports, Bloom? Because it's
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
I think what we can look at as the most important, the lead drum in the drum line, is from the Packers themselves saying, I think it was Matt LaFleur saying that Marshawn Lloyd will get used more as a rookie than A.J. Dillon was. And I think that's important because A.J. Dillon's still on the team. I thought, well,
Yeah,
geez, A.J. Dillon, yeah, remember the draft? Jordan Love, A.J. Dillon, and Josiah DeGuara is going to be the worst 1, 2, 3 that any team coming off of a championship round loss ever made. And instead, well, one of those picks worked out at least. A.J. Dillon did not work out. Okay, A.J. Dillon got a lot of opportunity to show what he could do in the NFL and showed that he's a plotter. He's a plotter. They brought him back anyway, and you thought, is this one of those situations where he knows the offense? Everybody in the locker room knows him. He's reliable because coaches don't care as much about explosive plays and dynamism and athleticism at the running back position than we do. They just care about assignment sound football. And I guess A.J. Dillon can give them that. She thought, well, maybe it's kind of like Ricky Pearsall. Well, I shouldn't even talk about the San Francisco situation. It could change at any second. But the point is, you thought, well, maybe Marshawn Lloyd isn't going to play a big role in year one. And the Packers are saying, no, 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 no. We're going to play him more. And the other thing is, Cease, as much as I like Josh Jacobs, when you think about the Packers running game, Marshawn Lloyd's skill set and style fits better. And it could just be one of those situations where they go in with this idea that, Lloyd will get every fourth series or Lloyd will give Jacobs a spell. But remember, this team was frustrating us with Aaron Jones usage, even when Jones was healthy, which
right.
wasn't often. And Marshawn Lloyd is going to be a legitimate changeup from Josh Jacobs.
Yes.
He's explosive, but he also is, is patient. And when he decides to stick his foot in the ground, he's that classic one cut and go running back that we've seen do so well in this outside zone running. And remember, defenses now are going to be hamstrung assuming Christian Watson can stay healthy, at covering these 4 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. The Packers are going to be able to run all kinds of personnel sets to really flummox the pass defense. And meanwhile, we know that this offense is still based on the run.
Yeah, and with the Marshawn Lloyd thing, Bloom, will it be? It's a Steelers show, although I could quickly turn this into a Broncos show. Basically, kind of what we saw from a young Willie Parker, right? When
Right.
Jerome Bettis was still there, getting the work, and Bettis is the work, and then this young cat would come in and he's like, one cut. Here's your baseball reference, home run hitter.
Yeah.
Is it something like that
Yeah.
maybe this year? Maybe a little bit more based on what LaFleur said?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that the Packers going out and getting Lloyd just shows the fit that they see for him. And Josh Jacobs' contract is basically a year-to-year contract. They're not really committed to him past this year.
Right.
So, dynasty leagues, you definitely have to be paying attention to that. But I think we get a little football poetry theory. Running games like the Packers running game establish a rhythm. And we think of that on the offensive side, and we think of that on behalf of the offensive lineman. Why don't offenses just pass 85% of the time? Because the offensive lineman would quit. They would quit. I mean, they want to tee off on some guys. They want to block. They want to be the aggressor some of the time. But what about rhythm for the defense? Because when you're defending the run as a front seven defensively, you also get in a rhythm. And the rhythm you get into to thwart someone like Josh Jacobs is totally different than the one you get. And we talk about chains of pace running backs a lot, but rarely do we have 2 running backs whose styles are contrasting enough that it truly is a change of pace. And that is a problem for defenses.
It's a wild variance, that's for sure. It's a wild show. It's the Audible. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe on this video. It really helps us out. And subscribe to footballguys.com. It's the best way to support this show. But as we continue on with our 5 biggest drum beats of the offseason, a drum beat that I was happy the note was hit, Bloom,
Mm-hmm.
was when Rasheed Shaheed got his bag.
Yeah.
Now, like, a little mini bag, a little baby bag. There's more coming.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about what's behind Chris Olave, you go, well, holy cow. I almost said a cuss word.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Joe. I almost said the S word. Holy, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
It could be way more Rasheed Shaheed and not just in return leagues and we get
Right,
this.
right,
Yeah.
right.
That's a bonus. Think of what he can do, tip of the iceberg of what we've seen on offense.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the return yardage league. Scott Fishbowl drafts. I think a few of them are still winding up. I'm in the Wally division. I had to pick Wally. I mean, who's the character you're going to pick? I mean, Wally is one of the greatest characters in any movie. And in that format, Rasheed Shaheed, I think our guy, Joe Bryant, the mayor of football guys, I think he took Rasheed Shaheed in the 4th round. Go look up the scoring if you don't know what I'm talking about. But
Smart.
you should also, as Cecil saying, know that he is a legitimate deep threat. And part of me wants to take a step back and say, what a run, Cecil. In the time that we've been doing this show, what an amazing run the Saints have had with undrafted wide receivers and running backs. It's just incredible how they can unearth these guys. And Rasheed Shaheed is the latest, but Rasheed Shaheed is going to very quickly, and maybe it isn't just that they find the guys, Cease, but it's that they give them a chance, that they actually
Mhm.
have legit competition. And if you're better, it doesn't matter what the draft pick was. It doesn't matter what we have invested in you. You're going to play. And Rasheed Shaheed immediately became a frontline receiver for this team as an undrafted rookie, like Marcus Callaway did. He's bouncing around somewhere. But Rasheed Shaheed is still very much central in this offense and as a deep threat, especially for those of you that play best ball leagues. He should also get a boost in that format because of his big plays. And see, because quite honestly, I think he had better chemistry with Derek Carr than Chris
Yes.
Olave did.
Yeah. And if you look back, and I was maybe set down by these numbers a little bit, Bloom, when I wrote about the Rasheed Shaheed extension on our Football Guys newsletter. 1,200 yards in 2 years. 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns, 5 of them coming last year. So it's not like we haven't seen this. We've seen it, but there's like a quiet rumble.
Right.
And now it's building. I'm not saying 1,200 yards just this season, but in 2 years, undrafted out of Weber State. Where is Weber State, Bloom?
Utah.
Like,
Harold the
oh,
Show Arsenault
yes,
upset
yes.
from the New Orleans area was leading the upset of I think North Carolina and Weber State's biggest moment in March Madness.
Okay, there you go. A little Weber State trivia on this show. But in 2 seasons at 1,200 yards, there's receivers that we give much more airtime and much more love, and fantasy gyms are like in love with the upside of this player. They haven't done what Rasheed Shaheed has done, so we're talking about it as a we haven't already seen it.
Right.
No, I seen it. We've
Yeah.
seen it.
And for us to see it, for him to do it as an undrafted rookie shows you just how irresistible what he showed the Saints in practice and training camp was. And we look forward to what he'll do for our fantasy teams and him getting paid, because when a player makes it as an undrafted free agent, that's truly their accomplishment.
Some drum beats are expected. I don't know, Bloom, maybe easier to call, but let's talk about Lad McConkey to wrap up today's program. Again, it is the Audible Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. Follow us both on whatever. Um, X Twitter. Uh, Lad McConkey, hey, yeah. Who else you gonna trust? Quentin Johnston? That's a no.
No.
Right? Who else are you going to trust in an offense where they will pass? They're going to run a lot. Jim Harbaugh there. But Lad McConkey, Senior Bowl bong rip coming up, looked like a supercharged Brandon Stokely. Honestly, Bloom, you know what he looked like? And I'll hand the baton to you with this. When I watched him at the Senior Bowl, he reminded me of when I saw Cooper Kupp at the Senior Bowl.
Sure. Why not? And maybe even with more speed, with more suddenness than Cooper Kupp, but a guy that just gets open and is reliable. I'll give you the drum beat that you're waiting for, Cease. In the Air Tonight, the Phil Collins classic. You're waiting.
Yes.
I'm not. Interesting song, intense song. But yeah, you with Lad McConkey, whenever the Chargers announced him as their second round pick, then you're waiting for the drum beat to start, because who's Justin Herbert's guy going to be? And for that matter, who are Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman going to rely on in this offense? I don't even know if Quentin Johnston is going to be on the field in 3 wide receiver sets, not even 2 wide receiver sets, in 3 wide receiver sets. Because remember DJ Chark, he's not bad. DJ Chark has shown he can do more on an NFL field than Quentin Johnston has at this point. And it's a new regime. The people that drafted Quentin Johnston aren't with the organization anymore. So we forget, and Assis, I have a feeling that there is going to be a Justin Herbert drum beat before the end of the summer. Be listening for that one, because we forget that Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh made an outstanding offense in Baltimore around Lamar Jackson. And eventually it got stale, but when it was fresh, it was wonderful. Smell those aroma wafting up off of that. And they have a good offensive line. Okay. So where do you start? This is why Jim Harbaugh kept emphasizing this, and he followed through and took an offensive lineman. You have an offensive line, you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, you can make things happen. When you have a wide receiver like Lad McConkey, you know who the ball is going to go to on important plays, and you know who the ball is going to go to on plays that Justin Herbert can extend with his scrambling ability, with his strength, and with his arm talent. Stuff that it feels like it's been a while since we've seen. But Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman are going to set him up for success, and Lad McConkey is going to be a big part of that.
You want to set yourself up for success? Thank you for that, Bloom. Then you check out footballguys.com. It's the way you support this show. We appreciate each and every one of you out there for watching and joining us along. We got a bunch of stuff, including audio-only shows. So you love us on YouTube, like, comment, share, subscribe. But also make sure to subscribe via however you listen to podcasts, or Spotify, Apple Music, what have you, because we have a bunch of audio-only shows coming up for you, including our annual tradition of the preseason watch list. So make sure to stay tuned for that. He's Sigmund Bloom. Again, follow him on Twitter X at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at The Audible. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned. Watch these other videos. Okay? Help us out. Click on these. And of course, stay frosty, baby.